Alright guys, Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons, and what I've got for you is a sort of analysis on the Bandmaid song Daydreaming. If you just want my straight reaction to it, you can get it with the eye up there. I'm not a huge fan of ballads, as I disclosed in there, and this song probably it clicked with me probably the least, if I'm being perfectly honest, out of all the songs I've listened to so far, which is kind of interesting because I really liked Wonderland. That's probably one of my favourite ones of theirs, and that's the slower one. But at the very end, I read the title and I was like, there's a whole aesthetic going on here that I've missed. So what I want to do now is approach the video kind of with the question of how have they made it sound like daydreaming, how have they conveyed that idea, that kind of thought. So I'm going to go through it here and kind of pick out key elements that to me really help reinforce this feeling of daydreaming, because in hindsight, having finished the song, it does have this kind of very hazy kind of just wandering through life in a bit of a daydream kind of feeling going on. So straight off the bat, we've got kind of some kind of like whoosh, wind kind of sample or something like that, right? There's a kind of magical twinkly thing going on here, which sounds like there might be a bit of delay. Let's bring that up actually. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is apply a bit of delay. It sounded like the notes were just kind of something to that effect, going between like that be an A down to a G, right? So I'm going to use the tap tempo here. So this is going to let me tap in a tempo, a speed. So it's something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. So it's come about 125 BPM. Now the reason I've done that is I'm going to change my delay type to, let's go for digital mono. Stereo might be better. I'm going to go digital stereo. So mono is just down the middle one, stereo is left and right, okay? What we can do here is we can set the tempo. So here it's already set to quarter notes. So if I put this really high in the mix, something weird's happened there. What's happened? I need to turn off my multi-delay, so I'm going to put that off. So you can hear it's echoing what I'm doing, and it's doing it in this rhythmic time. It's doing it at 125 BPM, so 125 beats per minute. So if I then play this, right, I can kind of play that in time. So I just played that once, and the delay's echoing it. If I move this down in the mix so it's not quite as prominent, right, we can do that. But what it's maybe doing is something like a dotted eighth note. So I'm still going to play at the same speed, but it's going to, the echo and the delay is going to come back in a different way. I'll just play it, it's easier than trying to explain. So I'm still just playing two notes, day-do, 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 pop the delay off, right? That's all I'm doing, but the delay's adding in these extra notes. So a simple melody like that, it's like the edge from U2, you know, putting on delay and effects, it really makes things a lot more daydreamy, a lot more epic. So that's kind of trick number one, using delay, I suppose. Well, trick number two, because we had that kind of swooshy sound effect. So the melody is much more complicated than that, but the same kind of thing applies. You can hear there's that subtle delay in the background. Instead of it just being do, it's like do, and that's kind of making this swirly kind of feeling happen. Something like this shot, I'm going to pop that back a second. If you look at the framing of this, nothing's quite right. It's shot from a kind of weird angle looking up, so it's a bit disorientating. The lines aren't straight, it's not straight up and down. Again, they're all kind of slanting off. And again, this is just kind of a subtle thing that you can do in film to make people feel a bit uneasy, is have a camera a bit squint. A classic would be something like, I think is Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Deliverance. It's one of those. It's the scene where there's like blood going against a light bulb that's kind of swinging, and the camera's crooked. It's not straight. It's like that, and it just means you're at odds with the environment, or something's dangerous, or the character's at odds with the environment. But here she's kind of slanted as well. So while there's an odd environment, she's kind of part of it. Now, I know this has nothing to do with the music, but it's this kind of aesthetic I'm talking about of the daydreaming and art in a bigger sense, if we want to be kind of pompous about it, right? If you listen to the vocals, the notes she's picking are quite sentimental. It's a somewhat breathy performance. They're kind of held there. And again, that is adding to the daydreaming thing. If you had like a kind of big, powerful stomach voice, like a kind of Dio thing, you know, when he's going full pelt, it wouldn't have the same impact. Like even that last one there in particular, really quite breathy. And then, you know, clever things like this scene here again, you've got this kind of dreamlike thing where it's an amplifier and this electronics put in a slightly kind of looking like it's run down, overgrown kind of. It's an interesting scene because this is like a mix between almost like a kind of post-apocalyptic. It took me about 4 goes to get that, where the kind of, you know, the concrete is a bit kind of worn down. Everything's all overgrown, but the overgrown thing's about kind of nature. Then you get something totally unnatural, which is the mess I have there. I mentioned this in the previous video I did really like that image. That was quite cool. Then also this kind of black and white thing with a bit of colour at the side. Again, it's this kind of dreamlike thing where it's not quite as crisp as real life. It's like watching something in I don't know, 380 instead of 4K or whatever, right? Quite a lot of the cymbals they're adding in this kind of which is a nice kind of daydreamy thing. The tempo that kind of dragging a bit really reinforces it. And like I'm not going to keep breaking down the scenes because that's not what I'm about here, but like everything here is designed in the video to reinforce this aesthetic, for lack of a better word. Okay, cool. So just as we come into the verse here, right, there's a sample that's like a kind of like it might be waves or it might be kind of wind. It could just be a really huge cymbal, but I think it's a sample. 2, 3, 4. You can hear there. A little bit back. Huge dynamic drop with that kind of whoosh over. He's really using a lot of dynamic control on her vocals as well, so that kind of breathy but kind of restrained at the same time. The guitar, we've got a lot of high end in it. It's a very twinkly part, while also still kind of outlining a major chord with that last little twiddle. So that's kind of implying a G major, which is more of a kind of dreamy chord, major sevens. Like if someone said dream to me, I'd probably think volume swells and major seventh or major chords. Right. And if we listen to the percussion as well, I say percussion rather than drums, because it sounds like it's maybe snaps or claps. They're absolutely drowned in reverb. So what I'll do is I'll click again and I'll put tons of reverb and delay on this in post-production, right? Do the same with clapping. And another one. Now what I'm going to do is I'll edit this out, but I'm going to clap quite a few times. I'm going to layer them all together. I'm going to put them to a bus with a ton of reverb on delay, and you're going to get this big kind of sound, right? Okay, so aside from just the delay that we talked about, the reverb as well as an effect, even something as simple as clapping, something as kind of punchy, and you know, if you get someone's attention, you can kind of clap and people look. You can make something as kind of bold as clapping, as sharp as that, a much more rounded ambient sound with these tricks. Next thing I want to look at is when the drums kind of kick in proper with the bass, right? This bit. So they're doing a simple rhythm with a right, the simple rhythm, but because they're not playing the full bar and they're letting it sustain, so and then it rings out, that bit of space, and particularly not kind of rounding up the bar and the bass, again it reinforces it. So I'll pop that back one more time. So combining that with the twinkly guitar, the kind of reverb that's going on, is leaving this space, this kind of just creates this kind of sense of daydreaming, all of it together, all the little parts doing whatever role they can to serve the greater theme of the song. And there's some kind of icing on the cake here. We've got some harmonics. So the harmonics here, our tone's wrong, it's too gainy, so let's make it a bit more twinkly. So what I've done here to make my tone more twinkly is instead of being on my bridge pickup, I'm on the bridge and the middle. I've rolled my volume down so it's not as gainy if it's up full. Just rolled it down a little bit to get a bit more ambience. I've got my delay on still, so I'm cheating a bit. I've rolled my tone pot down a bit so it's a bit softer. So if the tone up full, the tone at all, softer and rounder. So just a bit of that kind of rolled off. And she's going. Right, so if you want to learn that on guitar, we're up at the 7th fret on the G, over to the B string, 7th fret, and then the 5th fret on the G. If you don't know how to do natural harmonics, so as not to derail this video, I will put a link to how to do them up there. So if I just play those note values, which are a D, an F sharp, and a G, I'm trying to convert harmonics into real notes in my head here, which is a bit tricky. It doesn't sound the same, does it? If you play the notes normally, still a nice melody, but using these natural harmonics, completely different feel. Same notes. Timbre changes everything here, right? So it actually goes on for a bit longer there. She comes back down. So it's going up one way then back down. Which again, I suppose as an aesthetic, it's probably quite daydreaming, where it's kind of going down a path and going, oh, I've gone the wrong way, and kind of coming back, but not really being too bothered about it. So 7 to 7 on the G to the B, down to 5, 5 again. We're going to go 7 on the B, down to 7 on the G. Very Van Halen thing to do, something like Anima. I think that's probably dee 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 dee. I think that bit's harmonic, so if it made you think of that, that might be why. So here we can hear the parts coming together, the kind of twinkly guitar with the delay. The bass has gone for 8th notes here, so I suppose you could argue if they wanted to make it more daydreamy, that's probably not the thing to do. But if you want the song to have progression, these are sort of decisions you need to make, whether you want to make it a little bit more, or let's kind of go forward with it, or you want to make it more kind of shoegazy, which is, you know, it's just a artistic choice one way or the other. It's not really a right or wrong thing to do. So by 8th notes on the bass, I mean it's going 1, add 2, add 3, add 4, add dun 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 dun, right? Let me know what other things you think in this song make it sound daydreamy, but for me there's one kind of final part here that really kind of ties it all together. And there is an argument to be made that if you think of the song as maybe someone waking up from a daydream, that the bass doing the 8th notes serves that purpose. But there's a bit here that I really like, just at the very end, okay? When it goes down to the vocals, and particularly that shot, I said I wasn't going to talk about shots anymore, but I'm here. It's almost like she's woken up from a literal dream, isn't it? The whole dream's faded away and she's just kind of there by herself. There's not this kind of magic daydream wonderland anymore, right? Because it's here now. And it's just woken. Oh, it's not real. It was all kind of a daydream. This is probably the most holistic approach I've taken to analysing one of their songs and probably ever. So if you like this or you hate it, do let me know. But yeah, there'll be videos floating about there that were Bandmaid stuff and reactions. You can do the old subscribe, likes, comments, anything that feeds that notorious algorithm. Or join Patreon if you want to support the channel. Take it easy, guys. Have a good one.